He's the former NFL quarterback and great friend of the show. Had a lot of fun times with Sean Salisbury and the Sean Salisbury Show, 3 to 6 p.m. on Sports Talk 790 in Houston. He joins us this morning. Hi, Sean. How are you?
Dan, I'm doing great, bud. How are you? Good to be on. I'm just deciding what Red Sox jersey I need to wear for tonight, so I got to go find one of those.
Oh, you're on the bandwagon?
Well, bandwagon, you know better than this. Since I was about 6, I've been a Sox fan. Come on, man. I've been my whole life. My mom was a Yaz fan, so
wait a minute.
All Red Sox.
I'm going to ask the guys on the other side. Have you guys, Paulie? You've known Sean a long time. Have you ever heard Sean Salisbury talk about the Boston Red Sox?
Sean, I'd love to back you, but I remember you being an L.A. guy. I don't remember you talking about baseball teams specifically.
Wow.
You remember me being an L.A. guy, but not a Dodger guy. Listen, man, anybody knows. I'm a USC Trojan, and I like the Red Sox more than my alma mater. So this isn't just bandwagon. This is suffering all the years. You don't have to grow up in Boston, Dan, to be a Sox guy. So, yes, the Sox may sweep this thing. Keep a good eye on it. I got to find the jersey to wear for tonight.
Okay. All right. Favorite Red Sox growing up, aside from Carl Yastrzemski, was?
Jim Rice.
All right. Give me an obscure Red Sox.
Everybody points to Carlton Fisk's home run where he, obviously inside the foul pole. But it was the Bernie Carbo pinch hit home run into the center field well that got it to that point. So do not hate on left-handed Bernie Carbo.
Bernie Carbo also played for my Cincinnati Reds. All right, you had a tweet last night where you said more people, and I'm going to paraphrase, more people care about high school football in Houston than they do the Houston Texans.
It's true. Now, after last night, the buzz may change, but there's an Astros hangover here, Dan, because it's an Astros town. It is. This is a town, and you think Texas, first thing that comes to mind is football.
Yeah.
But this is an Astros town, and now with the struggle, Dan, 4-3 going into last night's game. On my show yesterday, just as a test, I said, it's Halloween. You'll ask a question of the day. I said, scariest Halloween movie of all time. And we were talking about the Texans breaking down, and I must have had 200 calls on the scariest Halloween movie. We had one on the Texans, and they're 4-3 going into a national televised game. Now, that's not on the fans. I don't think they trust Bill O'Brien as much as they'd like to. And watching Watson get into it, and they've had some ugly wins.
Yeah.
But you're not going to find many teams that are going to win 5 games in a row this year, and they did, and they played last night. I think it'll start to shift, but going into it, I do. Don't throw a wedding or a party on a Friday night in Texas, as you know. Nobody's showing up because they're going to high school football. So, but Watson, Dan, makes it – this is a different cat now, and he brings excitement to it, and it may start to shift. But going into the game, there was no buzz leading up to this game about the Texans, and maybe it'll change.
If I said you could have the future of Deshaun Watson or Dak Prescott?
Oh, Deshaun Watson, far more explosive. The difference between the two is that Watson can carry a team like Rodgers or Brady on his back for a month like a good hitter can when things are going well.
Mm-hmm.
I think Dak needs everything around him to be good, hence why they go out and get a guy like Cooper to try and ramp it up. And I think that puts more pressure on him to be successful. But that's an easy one for me, Watson all the way. He'll be an MVP in this league before it's over.
I guess define his style, because and I think a lot of times we look at, African-American quarterbacks and we talk about their athleticism. He sort of keeps plays alive. He's not a runner. He's sort of a scrambler. But how would you define his style?
And Dan, I think, and that's a great point, I think that people that label that is a disrespectful narrative to him, because my number one trait for him is I think he's got through-the-roof football IQ. And his best trait is, and you watched him play in college, you watched him play in the NFL, when the lights are the brightest, Alabama, Thursday night football, coming off an injury, he plays his best football. So to me, it's a guy who's still learning. His weakness is his biggest strength. He's got the hero mentality that he's got to make every play. And as you know, the great quarterbacks at some point in time, 3rd and 4, if you can't get it, you throw it out of bounds, we'll kick a field goal or punt. Once he gets to that level, there'll be no stopping him. His style of play is, he's not a true pocket guy, but he's not a true RPO, get on the edge guy, which I like, because I never want to take away his strength. But if I can corral it a little bit, saying, hey, man, it's 2nd and 8, it's the second quarter, you don't need to run through 4 defensive players. We need you on the field, not the sideline, once he corrals it. But he's an underrated guy from the pocket, and he's starting to learn how to throw people open as opposed to wait until they're open. He throws the tight windows. I think this guy's special. So he's only going to evolve more and more as he trusts the offensive line and gets rid of the hero mentality of having to make every play.
He's Sean Salisbury, former NFL quarterback, host of the Sean Salisbury Show, 3 to 6 p.m. on Sports Talk 790 in Houston. How much of a difference, if any, does Amari Cooper make for that Cowboys offense?
On the surface, Dan, the trade was first made, I thought that the Raiders had fleeced the Cowboys, and then you start to look around at some of the bodies that are drafted in the first round or high picks like Laquan Treadwell, Dotson, Corey Coleman, and you think, well, is a first rounder in the 15th, 18th pick later for that pick for the Cowboys, is that better than a guy who was a first round pick, had two really good seasons when he first started out? And I started to think, well, maybe this is a fair trade and a good trade for both. I think it'll help, Dan, because Beasley's obviously their best receiver. Right now, the way to beat the Cowboys is if you take Elliott away, you beat them for the most part offensively. But I think it just his reputation, he drops balls, but if he can elevate that and get back to the explosiveness he had as a rookie, it's an upgrade. There's no question. Now it's going to be up to him of what kind of player he's going to be. But the ball's got to stop hitting the ground when it hits his hands. But I think it's a wise move. And at first I thought, first rounder's too much. But looking at it, I think the Cowboys needed it, which tells you they're trying to go all in because the NFC East is also wide open because Philadelphia is struggling as well.
Most likely to not be with their respective teams in 2 years, Dak Prescott, Derek Carr.
Derek Carr. It may not even take 2 years. You know, John's coming in and cleaning house, and as we know, and I have a lot of respect for Gruden, is he falls in love and out of love with players and quarterbacks as much as anybody, Dan. He did it at Tampa. He's done it at Oakland until he got Rich Gannon and even in the broadcast booth. So I think he gets impatient quickly, and there's such different personalities. Now, that doesn't mean it can't work, but my philosophy is if you're going to clean house, then clean it. But if you think that Derek Carr can get you to February, then you keep him. And he's got some things to do because he hasn't played as well as he did pre-breaking the leg. But, you know, I don't think there's any question. Dak's going to get paid because you got to look out there and say, well, what's available free agency and who we draft. Jerry's going to pay Dak. Carr already got his money. I would say there's a chance that both will be in their same place. But if I had to pick one and gamble it, I would say that the Raiders will move on from Carr before the Cowboys move on from Prescott.
You would know this as well as anybody. I was talking about these younger quarterbacks, and they come in ready to play. But, you know, Patrick Mahomes, there were a lot of teams, a lot of scouts that missed on him. And I said, you know, part of the success is where you are, who you have with you. How's the line? How's your head coach? How's your offensive coordinator? And then what kind of talent do I have around me at the skill positions? If I put Patrick Mahomes in Buffalo, what is Patrick Mahomes doing in Buffalo?
Leaving us jaw-dropping with some of his ability, but they're not the second best or best team in the AFC. And, Dan, you make a great point, and I firmly believe this and have for a while. There's no better teacher/coach when you're in your infancy of trying to learn with patience, but with aggressiveness and play calling and what he wants than Andy Reid. He couldn't have gone. Think back when Ben Roethlisberger went to Pittsburgh, Dan. Remember when he was past a 10th or 11th pick, and here's a first rounder, and you go to a team that's the cupboard's not bare, and he got to go on with a good team, and it could have changed the course of his career. Look at Archie Manning. Great career, always on bad teams. Ben goes to a good team. Same with Mahomes. And he got to a team that's got incredible weapons, a coach that's willing to step out of the box and get comfortable being uncomfortable and turn it over to him. And he got rid of a Pro Bowl quarterback to turn it over to the guy who started one game. So I love this, and you're right. The environment around you, the creation of the players around you, and what you're willing to do with them. In Buffalo, we wouldn't be talking. He wouldn't be the MVP at the midway point, I can tell you that. But we'd be saying potential. And I can tell you this, Dan. You know when you go into a movie theater and they say, put your 3D glasses on? That's Mahomes, man. You need to put on 3D glasses when you watch him. He is not a system quarterback. He's an all-system quarterback, and he's got the guts of a daytime burglar, and I just love the way he plays. And we're in for something special with the young quarterbacks in this league, and he's at the top of that list.
Did you play against Lawrence Taylor?
I did.
You did?
Yes. Yes, I'm old, Dan. Is that what your point?
Well, no, we were talking about...
I played against him, but not very good.
Okay. I didn't need to ask that. You know,
right.
But I was talking to the Danettes that when I covered the Giants and I'm watching this defense and I'm watching Lawrence Taylor, to be on the field to watch him as opposed to TV, like he's one of those guys where you watch and you go, that there's nobody like him. He just changed football. There's certain guys where you say he changed football. And Lawrence Taylor was one of those guys. And I know that Belichick was asked about Khalil Mack, and somebody said, "Could you compare Khalil Mack to Lawrence Taylor?" And, Belichick, no, you can't. No, you can't.
Yeah. Here's how I could compare him. As much as Mack's a great player, that they both play football. Okay, tackle football. Dan, when we played against him, and think about my team, and no wonder Minnesota didn't go to more Super Bowls. They had me on their roster, but we had Randall McDaniel and Gary Zimmerman, both in the Hall of Fame, on our left side. And there are certain guys, you mentioned Lawrence Taylor, and Randy Moss was the same on the offensive end, where they literally you urinated down your leg when you had to play against them. And Lawrence was one of those guys that you'd go into a game plan, he'd use up so much time of your preparation, because if he would have lined up in the parking lot during the game, Dan, we'd have had to go out and block it. You know what I'm saying? So he was special. And Gary Zimmerman, you'd get that guy on the team, those guys who always give linemen a hard time, and Zim was so good. And they'd say, "Hey, Zim, who's coming to town this week? We got LT. We got LT." And even get the great Gary Zimmerman, beads of sweat rolling down his forehead. And Lawrence Taylor was just that cat, and you said no matter what, he's going to show up. He was one of those guys you look at. You didn't want to look him in the eye. I'm just kind of look away. Like a dog does when it's getting in trouble. I think I'll turn my cheek. I'm not going to stare at that dude. So yeah, he was special. And I'm sure DBs felt that same way when they had to line up against Moss on a regular basis.
Oh, he's the longtime Red Sox fan, Sean Salisbury. Good to have you back on the show, Sean.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll next time when you call me back, if the Astros are in, I'll have an Astros.
I'm sure. If the Dodgers come back and take 3 in a row here, you're going to have Dodger gear on. You're going to have Davey Lopes jersey on.
Let's go, Butch Hobson. I'll see you, Dan.
Thank you, buddy. That's Sean Salisbury. We had some fun times. He could have some fun. First team all road trip right there.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.